The secret treasures of Salaat, the name of God most gracious, merciful. All praise is God's, Lord of the universe, most gracious, Lord and Lord most merciful, King of the day of judgment. We rehearse to Thee alone our worship and petition. Guide us, O Lord, in Thy right admonition, in ways of peace, in Thy bounty's fruition, not in their path who know Thy wrath, nor in their way whose steps go to perdition. The Holy Quran, chapter 1, the garden, I am fortunate to live in a part of the city that shelters a beautiful park. The park is a garden, strangely secluded in a swirl of traffic. I spend some time walking there on most days, since its main gate is hardly 40 steps from my own door. The name of the garden, Namaz, is set in a bronze plaque in a stone and masonry wall at the gate, which opens onto a place of remarkable peace. I have often wondered how, in a city of this size, so few people have discovered its winding, peaceful path. Generally, I am alone in the heavy scent of herbs, seduced by the heat of the sun. Even the crisp morning air in the place is fragrant. Occasionally lovers can be seen at a distance towards evening, but mostly I am alone. The privacy of the garden is a wonder for another reason. It seems to have been caught on a corner of time, so that the cycles of years pass it by. The winter ice at the gate is overcast by a blossoming bough. Yet so few people stop to enjoy them that the ground under the trees is thick with the pungent odors of ripeness and rotting. There is indeed a gardener with whom I have on rare occasions stopped to chat, but I usually pass him with a nod and the briefest of greetings. He is often so wrapped in his work, which he seems to do more for the enjoyment of it than for his salary, that he hardly seems to see me as I pass. He surprised me this afternoon as I was engrossed in sampling one of the fruits that was just coming on. I do not know its name, but have heard it to be of the genus Ramadan. It is slightly smaller than a plum, of a translucent golden color with a blush of crimson. It is still quite hard when ripe, but very tart to the tongue. The unusual thing about it is the delightful smell of vanilla from the skin. After having eaten one, the smell stays on one's fingers for hours, and no washing seems to diminish it. As I was enjoying one of these delicacies and already eyeing another, I was startled at the approach of the gardener. Now, all of the fruits in the garden are open to the public to enjoy merely on condition that none are removed from the premises. But the seclusion of the place inspires a sense of intruding on private property and the property of a wealthy and powerful personage at that. So I looked up guiltily from my pleasurable task. Overlooking my embarrassment, the gardener paused to comment on the condition of the bushes. Then he abruptly turned to me and asked, "Have you ever visited the fountain on the eastern slope of the garden?" I was astonished. I had imagined that with all of my years of frequenting the place, I had discovered all there was to know about it. Suddenly I realized that although the garden did not seem large, it held secrets of which I had been completely unaware. I had in fact spent years wandering over the same paths by force of habit, and all of my intimate knowledge of the garden was little more than mere illusion. At once a new boldness took hold on me, and I answered, No, sir. I did not even realize that the fountain existed. Would you be so kind? With pleasure, he said, and with that led me down the pathway. We had not walked more than a few minutes when we came out of the shade of the trees into a bright glade. Against the hillside there was a sun-engulfed fountain that seemed to be bubbling out liquid diamonds. I stopped short and stared at the scene, amazed that such a place existed at my very fingertips for so long. The gardener turned to go. I hope you enjoy it, he said, and then retraced his steps back to his labors. I had already been admiring the beauties of the fountain for several minutes before I noticed a man sitting on the grass behind it. He wore a dark beard and was fingering a string of white and rare green onyx beads. The glint of the sun on his beads was what had attracted my attention. When the man noticed that I had seen him, he got up, produced a green onyx bowl, filled it with the clear liquid of the well, and brought it to me, saying at the same time, "Peace to you." "And to you also peace," I replied, for it was sweeter than honey, more refreshing than nectar of limes, and in some way more intoxicating than the finest wine. Yet the draught seemed to make my mind and senses clearer, so that the shadows about me disappeared, and every leaf stood out in bold relief like so many living emeralds. What is this well, and why have I not found it sooner? I asked the man. This is an ancient well dug by the early prophets. Beside it sat one day the great prophet and Messiah, peace be upon him. He was very thirsty, and at that time the well was deep. A woman came to draw water, and he asked her for a drink. Since that time the well has been full and running over, a fountain of living water, that if anyone drinks of it, he will never again be thirsty. But it is true that few find it. If they search at all, they search too far away, not realizing that the fountain of living water is within the garden. "And who are you, sir?" I asked somewhat discourteously, I fear. I had the feeling that he not only knew who I was, but the mere suggestion there might be anything he did not know was foolish. "I am the gate into the city," he said, and took a golden key on a silver chain and opened a door in the hillside. As soon as he had opened the door and was standing beside it, it seemed to me that he turned into a great lion with a shining mane. When I saw the lion in front of the door, my legs refused to support me, and I fell to the ground faint. Chapter 2, the golden staircase. When I looked about me again, there was neither lion nor man, but only the fountain, the onyx beads on the grass, and before me an open door and a golden staircase. The staircase was lit by the most dazzling and beautiful light imaginable. The broad and spacious steps led gently, as it seemed, toward a street lined with palaces and mosques with shining minarets, domes crowning hill after hill behind. The steps appeared easy and welcoming, so that before I realized what I was doing, I found myself approaching them to go up into the place from which poured the light. As I lifted my foot upon the first step, I found that either I had suddenly shrunk or the step had become a wall towering far above my head. There was no human way of entering the light, which suddenly became so attractive that, grown man that I am, I could hardly bear the chagrin and disappointment. As I stood at the wall, wondering what I should do, my eye fell on some letters. I read them out to myself. I begin with the name of God, the most gracious, the ever merciful. As soon as I had said the words, the wall opened before me, and I stepped into a place such as I had never seen. I saw thousands of angels shining, dressed in white. But the white was made of all of the colors of the rainbow, indeed of more colors than I had ever seen in any rainbow, more colors than in the magpie's wing. All of the angels were turned toward one man, who stood on a little rise in the distance and bowing themselves in prostration to the ground. When the angels rose, I spoke to the nearest one, saying, "Peace to you." The angel turned to me and said, "And to you peace. What do you wish?" I said, "Please, sir, is that not Adam, the great prophet, peace be upon him to whom you bow in prostration?" The angel said, "He is Adam, the first of the prophets. May the peace and blessings of God be upon him." And we prostrate before him because it is the command of God that we do so, and because he was given knowledge by God to know the names of all things. I immediately felt a burning desire to come near the prophet. And since no one stopped me, I stepped forward and was soon at his side. When I greeted him, he turned and looked at me with such an expression of peace and love that tears sprang to my eyes. "And unto you peace. What is your wish, servant of God?" he said to me. "It is not for me to inform the prophet of my wishes. If it please the prophet, he will tell me what I need to know. I know all of the names of all things, but the myriads of names all lead to one name, or they're nothing. Do you see the thousands of faces about you?" "Yes, my Lord." I said, "All of those faces have names, and all of those faces return to stand before one face. There's one name to which all creation returns, and one face before whom all creation—" "I know it, my son, for only those who have believed my message enter this place. The step is high, and no man can scale it. Only those who begin in that name of all names find their way to the gate of paradise." I thought that I might listen to the words of the prophet. So sweet were they forever. But I suddenly realized a change in the angels about me. As the prophet's words fell on me, my mind became clearer. My eyes saw reality more closely than before, and I saw that the angels who had before seemed little larger than I had become enormous, so that all I could see of them were their glistening golden feet and ankles. With terror, I turned again toward the prophet. Gradually his face faded as though in a mist, and I found myself in a heap lying on a hard surface. When I had come to myself a little, I looked about and found that I was lying on hard, smooth stone that stretched in every direction. I stood up and turned around. Behind me at some distance was the open gate by which I had entered. Beyond that I saw the fountain. I was standing at the top of the first step, chapter 3. I find the ark when I realized where I was. I immediately began looking for letters engraved in the wall. I searched the entire surface, as far as I could go in both directions, and as high as I could see. I found nothing. Surely, I thought, no one can be lost on this step forever. There must be some way of gaining the second step, but try as I might, I could find no way, nor could I think of anything to do. I had tried every stone from one end to the other. It seemed, as I laid my hand on the last stone, I said to myself, in any case, God surely rules all things in the universe. Praised be He. As soon as I said the words, the stone gave way beneath my hand. A section of the wall pivoted inward, and I found myself in darkness. When my eyes had adjusted from the bright light of the stairway to the semi-obscurity of the place where I was standing, I looked about me and saw that I was in a large, open building. I saw no one about, so I began to explore. I soon noticed that the structure was made of wood and very tight, as ships are built. I was in a moving ship. I wandered from empty deck to empty deck, admiring the luxurious but empty accommodations and the ingenuity of the construction. There were pools and fountains, artificial gardens, and an enormous zoo. But as yet I had seen no people. At the bow of the ship, high above the hold, I found a large and spacious mosque, well lit, the floor covered in the most finely woven woolen carpets. I had admired the workmanship of the walls and carpets for some minutes before I noticed an old man. He was enveloped in such an air of serenity that he easily escaped notice altogether. When I saw the man, I greeted him, and he answered me kindly and welcomed me to the place. I sat beside him, and he asked me something of my travels. In the course of the conversation, I remarked on how strange it was that such a luxurious vessel should be devoid of passengers. Yes, said the old man, none of my countrymen elected to come on the voyage, although by doing so they might have saved their lives. The ship is prepared to receive thousands of passengers, but only a few of my closest family are here in the ship with me. With overwhelming awe, I realized that this modest, polite old man was the prophet Noah himself. Peace and blessings of God be upon him. I am sure that my manner changed perceptibly when I realized who the man was, but he gave no sign of knowing it. May I ask, my Lord, I said, why it is that none of the people of your country joined you? It is for 2 reasons, said the prophet. First, they neglected to give all praise to God. They reserved thanks for themselves, waited for praise from others, and were gratified to give and receive it. When they were not praised, they were indignant. They forgot that all praise belongs to God. Second, they thought themselves to be powerful. They thought that they ruled the world and made the decisions that changed destiny. That is why they were unmoved by my warning of catastrophe. They did not want to know that it is God alone who rules the universe. The old man stood up lightly and took me by the hand. Come, he said, and I will show you the sea. We went up to the top of the ship, where there was a fine lookout window open on all sides. In every direction I sun shining. When I saw the sea, I exclaimed, all praise is God's, the Lord of the worlds. With that the swaying of the ship ceased, and the floor under my feet became firm and steady, and I found myself standing at the top of the 2nd step. Chapter 4, an altar, 2 sons, and well, this time I was not alone. I stood on the step with an angel who at once addressed me. Do you intend to climb up to the 3rd step? He asked. Yes, indeed, sir, I said, perhaps too confidently, for the angel smiled. And how do you intend to do so? Asked my companion. Just as before, I shall seek until I find a way, I replied. The angel shook his head slowly and said, "Of all those who have searched, none have ever found a way onto the third step. It is humanly impossible. You cannot get there." "But, sir," I said, "I have come so far, and I wish with all my heart to go further." "Why?" said the angel. "Because I want to enter the delicious light that I see above me," I replied. "Your wish is a selfish one, and it is not your place to try to enter the light of God." The angel looked at me sternly, and I had not yet noticed a glint of humor in his eye. I sank to the stones at his feet and began to weep hopelessly. "Is there no way at all?" The angel looked at me thoughtfully and then said, "I did not say there is no way at all. Of course there is a way, but you are not able to climb it yourself. I could take you there." "Oh, sir," I cried, "take me there, please. Take me there in your arms." The angel did not answer, and when I looked up, I could see only the burning golden feet. I was suddenly grasped up by the ankles and whisked away in the air. I found myself standing within sight of a rocky prominence. There was a stone altar there, a well, and a man standing between them. I bowed deeply and said, "Peace and blessings of God upon you, O one on whom God has mercy." For I knew that I must be in the presence of a great prophet, but I did not yet know who he was. "Welcome, my dear son," the prophet said. "Am I your son?" I asked, astonished. "In me all families of the world are blessed. None come here but my children, and they are as many as the sands of the sea and the stars of the sky." Then I knew he was the prophet Abraham, peace be upon him. He took up a pitcher and poured out with his own hand water for my ablutions, for it was the time of evening prayer. When the prayer was over, he called to someone in a tent nearby that I had not yet noticed. A woman appeared with bright eyes darting above her veil, and the prophet asked her to bring the meat of a goat, some bread, and some milk for my refreshment. When night drew on, the prophet himself showed me a place to sleep, and I sank into deep, refreshing, dreamless sleep, and awoke only at the call to prayer. As the sun streamed into the valley, I took my courage into my hands and approached the prophet with the question, "My Lord, on my way here, I met 2 prophets, both of whom gave me gifts of unspeakable beauty. Will you also grant me something?" Did you not learn the 2 words from the angel? I was mystified. "The angel said nothing, my Lord," I said. "Nevertheless, I think that the angel taught you 2 words, or you could not have come here," remarked the prophet. "But I shall tell you the 2 words and how I learned them. The first word is most gracious. I learned the meaning of this word in my old age when my first son was born. Yes, when my son was born, years later I learned what the word ever merciful means." The prophet was silent for a long moment. Finally, he went on, "I learned the meaning of the word ever merciful when I lifted my son onto the altar and took the knife in my hand. Without realizing it, I was sitting on the top of the 3rd step in the morning sun." Chapter 5. The tables of stone. I knew better than to think that I could go further by mere perseverance. I knew now that it all depended on the grace of God. I would reach the fourth step, God willing, but not by my own planning and search. I must trust entirely in the most gracious and ever merciful. All praise to him. With horrible fascination, I watched the wall of the fourth step begin to separate from the step on which I was sitting, to reveal a deep and dark chasm between the third and the fourth step, and above the certain depth of the pit, arched a long and horrendously high bridge. It was as narrow as a brick. No, as I looked at it, it became as narrow as a knife. With despair I looked and realized that I would have to cross it. With my fear of heights, I knew I would fall into the dizzying darkness, but there was no help. Even now, the edge on which I stood was beginning to crumble. Perhaps if I shut my eyes, I said foolishly to myself. I knew that I was going to my death, but I thought it better to die walking toward the great light than to slide off the precipice without making an effort to save my life. So I put my foot on the razor narrow bridge, took a deep breath, and launched myself away. Instead of falling into the pit, I saw with wonder that as soon as I had stepped onto the bridge, it became wider, so wide that even my fear of heights was appeased, and I labored upward toward the top of the fourth step. As I climbed, I found myself on a high mountain. I approached him with difficulty, for his face was shining like the sun. But as I came near, he put a veil over his face, and I could greet him comfortably. Lord Moses, I said, I have long desired to see the 2 tables of stone and to know the secret of the writing on them. The prophet said, for that reason I came out to meet you. Read, if you can, the words on the stone. The stones were cut smooth of blue material and written with a shining script on all 12 faces. Where does the writing begin, my Lord? I asked. He showed me the place. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out. Suddenly I saw before me the words of the 2nd chapter of the Holy Quran in blazing letters of fire. I saw the whole world. It seemed dancing in ecstasy around the golden calf. I looked in horror as the gyrating bodies reeled about. Before my eyes, the idolaters turned into loathsome reptiles. The desecrators of the Sabbath turned into mindless apes, dressed in suits, going on about their business, attending churches, earning fortunes, and falling in love. Those who bore false witness turned into ferocious, slathering dogs. The adulterers turned into frantic, grunting pigs. The voice of the prophet shattered the vision. Read it, know it, do it, he said, for it is life on the day of judgment. As he said, the words, day of judgment, lightning blazed about the mountain and peals of thunder rolled. And I heard, as it seemed, thousands of voices crying, Master of the day of judgment. The words echoed and re-echoed and re-echoed about me. The clouds swirled. I hid my eyes until all was quiet. When I opened my eyes, I was standing alone at the top of the fourth step. Looking back, I saw the open gate and through it the glimmer of the fountain. Far, far below me in the distance, chapter 6, David's harp. I stood breathing hard at first, letting the sudden calm of this new place pour over me. I waited. The smell of something wild and tender first made me turn, and then I heard intermittently the sounds of what I took to be music in the distance. I went in the direction the sounds seemed to be coming from, and soon began an ascent through a sort of canyon that wound its way through scrubby trees and perfumed herbs. The music became ever louder, but how can I describe it? The air itself was electric with ecstasy. There was a man sitting on the ground playing a harp of 10 strings. His mouth was open, and out of it came sounds, neither human nor angelic, so beautiful, enchanting. Beside the man, nuzzling against him, was a deer, eyes rapturously fixed on the singer's face. 2 birds mating in the canyon stopped and flew to the singer, twittering and fluttering in disappointment that they could come no nearer to the divine music. All about the man were living wild animals, transfixed by the magic song. I do not know how long I too stayed to hear the music. It could have been minutes or centuries. I too sat absorbed, my eyes on the prophet's face, and he sang on and on. In dreams I can almost remember the words and music, and I awake weeping that they are forgotten, all except the haunting memory of exquisiteness, as though for the first time and only time I had entered the presence of reality. And now all of the best dreams of earth. Of the words of the song, I can remember only Thee alone we worship, of Thee alone we ask petition. Despairingly, I repeat them over and over until a comfort comes over my soul that turns the longing for some place beyond that I have glimpsed, and which I remember into a sharp, cold, many-faceted diamond, whose brilliant, blinding reflections bring a tear to my eye, whose sharp corners bite into my heart and cleanse my soul of its angry fears. I listened to the song of David, peace and blessings of God be upon him, until I slept. I awoke in a cold, clear morning, and I was alone at the top of the 5th step. Chapter 7, the Sermon on the Mount. Although it was early, I heard voices, the voices of children, but perhaps of others too, who were chattering as they walked along. But then the sun was up and warmth seeped out upon the world, partly from the gaiety of the voices and partly from the increasing brightness of the sun. I followed the sounds and suddenly found myself walking with a crowd of people who were making a green streak in the dew-silvered grass of a meadow. We came to a hill with a lesser growth, and we all sat down on rocks and put up our feet in the sun to dry. A man just below the crest of the hill began to speak. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they are the servants of God. Do not imagine that I set myself against the law or the other prophets. All of the prophets are agreed. Submit to all of the commands of God without hypocrisy and with a pure heart. Give alms without thought of thanks. Bow down in the prostration of prayer with simplicity. Fast truly and humbly. When it comes to the pilgrimage, do not make excuses that someone may break in and steal your treasures. Gather for yourselves the treasures of God instead. Do not make the excuse that you have no food and drink for the journey, nor clothes to wear. Seek first the house of God, and He will give you all of the things that you need. Beware the judgment, for as you judge others, so will you be judged. On that day, those who claim to be my followers will be cast into hell. But those who obeyed the will of God will look up with happy faces. The prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, marked out the path clearly, the path of giving alms in charity, of prayer in prostration, of fasting and pilgrimage. Then he said, "Pray to God, lead us in the straight path." The people were silent, loath to leave that peaceful place, as though the simple, direct way of truth had caught them up and held them in sweetness. The people went away. I was alone, standing on the top of the 6th step, chapter 8, the light of God. I was startled to find waiting for me here the lion which had so frightened me at the gate in the garden of the fountain. He opened his mouth and spoke. "Do you wish to go up the last step into the light sent from God?" "Yes, sir," I said. "You know that I do." "Very well," said the lion. "I shall carry you there in my mouth." Instinctively, I took a step backward. "Is there no other way, sir?" I said. The lion looked at me calmly. Then he began to walk slowly toward me. My knees buckled, and I fell down on the golden stones. The lion stood over me. There was no place to hide, no place to run to, and it was too late to do so. "Are you afraid?" I did not know what to answer. His face seemed inscrutable, and I wished that I had more experience in reading the expression in the eyes of animals. When I did not answer, he said, "It does not matter. I can take you up the last step, whether or not you are afraid. There is no need to try to overcome your fear." At that moment, all fear left me, and I was like a dry leaf swept up and caught in the lion's golden mane, all scented over with thyme and clover without fear. I felt the great bounding stride more like flying than anything. I was deposited at the top of the steps, in the middle of a circle of prophets and divine guides from all ages and all countries, from every kindred, nation, tongue, and people. The lion roared a great rolling roar, a great laughing roar, and all of the people laughed. I looked at the faces around me and saw among them the Prophet Muhammad. Peace and blessings of God be upon him. And he too was laughing. When the invitation had died to a chuckle, the lion said to the prophet, "I have brought you this little one." "I see you have," said the prophet, and chuckled again. I sat in the middle of the circle, bathed in the soft light of God, bathed in the glorious light of God, bathed in the everlasting light of God. The throne of glory surrounded all things, far above all things, deep within all things. Beyond all searching and above all knowing was the infinite, eternal, almighty, all gracious, and ever merciful. I saw that the height of the steps was only a plain, and all of the prophets were sitting in a circle together, none far from the other, nor separated by walls of time and place. "Let him stay here for a moment and hear the teaching," said the prophet. "Peace and blessings of God be upon him and upon his house forever." So I sat and listened to the prophet's word. "There are two ways in which to incur the wrath of God," he said. "They are to disobey the commands of God and to despise the prophets whom he has sent into the world. There are two ways in which to go astray. They are to associate any other with God, for he is one and there is no other, and to rely on any means or sacrifice of blood for salvation and forgiveness than the infinite grace and mercy of God. God has given two bounties for which we must ever be grateful. They are the holy books and the people of the house. It is the way of those upon whom thou hast poured out thy bounties, who have not incurred thy wrath, and who have not gone astray. With these last words still echoing all around me, the vision seemed to disappear. The smells, the sights, the glories passed away. The garden and its fountain tipped and swirled and faded. I had only a last glimpse of the gate and the walk before it encrusted with the crackly, re-frozen snow of spring. Then I found myself sitting on my own prayer carpet with the white onyx beads in my hand. Lighting the evening lamps when Ali Haidar goes to pray at evening, he bows upon a rug with 7 lamps forever fixed upon its woolen weaving, whose fragrant smoke and flame no twilight damps extinguish. Dragon, phoenix claws entwined to guard the ring of flowers of paradise, and footprints of 5 holy ones combined to show the steps to heaven to human eyes. The same celestial ladder Jacob climbed is stretched below the arch of the 4 gates, hinged open, golden, pearl, and jewel, rhymed. Before each gate a bright archangel waits, and such is Ali Haidar's evening prayer, and such the lamps, and such the golden stair